Q. Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank on the Voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160. It's 746, and it's time now for an interview segment presented by our friends at the law offices of Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. If it's Friday at 7:45, it means it's Bob Pollock from the Cooperative Extension joining us. Bob, how you doing this morning?
Good. How are you?
Doing fine. Now, remember, folks, this is an interactive segment. You can call in with your questions for Bob at 724-479-1160, 724-349-WCCS, or if you're watching us live on Facebook this morning, if you post a question to the comments section, we will try to get that question on the air as well. So we'll give that a shot today this morning. So, Bob, one of the things that has popped up, at least on my radar over the past few weeks, has been the spotted lanternfly situation. Now, we were talking a little off air. It's not as prevalent here in Indiana County, but still we are on kind of a awareness, kind of a watch type of situation here, because spotted lanternfly, the invasive species, does kind of do a lot of damage.
Yes, it can. It can make more of a mess than anything else also.
Okay. Were you about to show something to our audience?
Really, well, yeah, so there's lots of resources available. So if you haven't seen it, there's a spotted lanternfly guide, which really goes through all the steps that you need. It was put out in 2021, but it's a management guide for them. So it goes through all the things, the steps that you may need to take to control them if you have them. Mm-hmm. And it has lots of good pictures in there. It shows pictures of the life stages so that you can start to recognize what they may look like. So, and at this point, really April through July, the one nymphal stage that you would see now is all black with white dots on it.
Right.
Okay. And then as we move from July into August and through September, then those will molt and they will change, and then they add red to their appearance. I mean, bright red.
Yeah.
So they'll be red, they'll be less black, but they'll still have white dots on there. So we'll have three colors going on.
All right. So that sounds like it makes it kind of easily distinguishable.
Yes, it helps a lot. Yeah, because there are not very many other things that look just like these. And then the adult stage is a moth, and their wing pattern is pretty distinctive as well. And they have black dots, over their wing, the outer covers of their wing pad, and they can fly around. And they then, of course, they'll start laying egg masses then here in the fall for, to keep the cycle going for next year.
And I think that's what a lot of people should be on the lookout for, those egg masses, because they could be on cars, they could be on houses, they could be just about anywhere.
Right, and that's one of the key ways that they have then spread across the state, is the adults lay the eggs get on there, people don't see them. Then they move vehicles, all kind of different things, get moved, shipping containers, you name it, and then that spreads it around. I guess in Allegheny County, and that's where they really identified it first, Allegheny and Beaver County a couple of years ago. In those areas, there's definitely a bigger outbreak that is much more noticeable by folks these days.
Okay.
But they're flying around. Of course, they're sap feeders, so they inject their mouth parts into plant material and then suck the sap out, and then that, they use that as a source of energy, but then some of it also gets passed through their system and comes out the other end as what we call honeydew.
Okay.
So it's just sugary liquid that comes out, but it makes, when you have a large population of these, it just rains sugar water. And so anything, any surface that gets on becomes a mess, okay? Because there's sugar in there, then we get molds and other things that grow on that sugar substrate that's there. So whether it's on your car or your picnic table or on the sheets on the line, or
it's yucky.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
So it really makes it difficult you just have to get away. You can't, if you have a picnic table or if you have areas under trees where they might be feeding. You may not be able to habitate those areas at all, or play areas for kids and things like that. So it can be a huge nuisance. Then on the crop side, grapes are one of the really key crops that they can attack and make a mess of. And over time, if they're not controlled on grape arbors and vines, they can suck enough sap out of the plants to kill the plants over a 2 or 3 year period. So
okay.
On crops like that, they need to be controlled. Other things, they can just be a nuisance and not cause as much of a decline.
Okay. We do have a caller on the line. So, caller, go ahead with your question to Bob Pollock.
Hi, Dr. Bob. Just a request what's the late blight report?
Okay, yes, late blight. There are still no reports of late blight anywhere around, which is good. Multiple states, no reports yet. The downy mildew, on the other hand, is kind of all over the place. They found it just this week in Center County, added to the list, and then you go out and it's a couple spots in Ohio and Michigan, and then, of course, on the eastern seaboard that's been spread around, primarily on the cucurbit crops, the vine crops, so the pickles, the cucumbers, all those can be highly susceptible to that and cause a fairly rapid decline in those plants once they get downy mildew.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for calling in, sir. All right, so there we go. And we have room on the line, 724-479-1160 or 349-WCCS. That's one thing I don't think about, blight, because I think of things, again, from the backyard gardener's perspective, but blight can even affect the backyard garden.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, it can. Most tomato varieties are susceptible to blights, as are a lot of other vegetables. Blight is such a general term.
Yeah.
Sometimes time we get spots on plants, they're blighted. Well, yes, they are. Are they caused by fungi that just cause leaf spots? Are they caused by organisms like some of the Phytophthora that really cause water-soaked areas and can cause major decline in the plants in a hurry? And then there's other genera and species of organisms that will cause blighting and leaf spotting. Of course, we have septoria leaf spot, which is fungal developed. We have bacterial specks and spots.
Right.
Bacteria can be tricky because, yes, you get these spots. They'll make spots on the tomatoes, for example, as well, leaves and fruit. And then in addition to that, once the bacteria gets internally into the plant, then that causes a general decline of the plant. So the crop will die sooner than you'd like it. You won't get as much yield off of it with those bacterial infections.
All right. Let's take our next caller. Caller, you're on the line with Bob Pollock, and go ahead with your question.
Good morning, Bob. I have a red maple tree that is, I don't know how old it is, but it's as tall as my two-story house. The last 2 years or so, the tree has looked really healthy up until the last couple of years. Half of the tree looks perfectly normal, and the other half has no leaves on it at all. And I just wondered if you have any idea. Do you think maybe this is not getting maybe enough moisture, enough water? I don't know.
That's always a possibility. We've had periods of time that have caused stress levels to all kind of trees and shrubs over the last decade. We've had severely wet, saturated periods of time. We've gone the opposite and had dry spells. And now the transitions between those, we get them stressed, especially when things get really wet and saturated. We can kill off some roots, especially the feeder roots that are important for taking up water and nutrients. That stresses the plant, and if it's not able to regrow those and have enough energy there to continue to get through those stress periods, then when we get into the next stressor, it just kind of builds.
Okay.
And so we can.
I have a lot of ivy growing around the bottom of the tree.
Okay.
Should I maybe pull that away and try to get more water? Maybe take a hose?
Although the ivy as a ground cover isn't going to, should not limit the amount of water that a mature tree gets.
Okay.
So that's not necessary. I mean, like English ivy, we don't really want it growing up the trunk and taking over the tree. So if it's just around the base, that's fine.
Okay.
And it's tough to water mature trees because of the number of gallons that it really takes we're talking hundreds of gallons, per tree to equal what we would get in a half inch or an inch of rain period. You may have had some leaf spotting on those maples this year. That's been pretty common, where we've had a number of, there's frog eye leaf spot and some other leaf spots, as well as a little bit of anthracnose that may have come in this spring, just depending on the timing of when that leafed out. So you could have lost some leaves just due to that. The other one, depending on species of maple, is tar spot, which was also very common this year, and that also caused leaves to drop on the trees. So
there's nothing you can really do about those spots, because I have a young maple that has those little spots on the leaves of the tree.
Yeah, and usually, as long as they're hanging on there, for the most part, that we still have green foliage on there, the trees will usually get through that. A little bit of spotting on the leaves. As long as those leaves are there, still have some green in them, they're still functioning, they're still helping the tree go through photosynthesis and make its own food, and so you're okay there.
Great. Thank you very much, Bob.
You're welcome.
Thank you for calling in, ma'am. We're just about out of time, Bob, but I did want to say, we did want you to talk about Ag Progress Days, because that's coming up pretty soon.
Sure. Yep. Next week, Tuesday to Thursday, the 9th to the 11th. Tuesdays from 9 to 5. It's free entry, free parking. It's the largest outdoor agricultural exposition around the state. And so 3 days of that. Wednesday, it's open until 7 in the evening, and then Thursday from 9 to 4. So 3 days next week. Many exhibitors and demonstrations, and you see field machinery demonstrated, all kind of food vendors and things where you can, of course, gather Pennsylvania's best, and as well as any kind of piece of equipment that you'd ever want to see.
And this will be where?
And it's at Ag Progress Days site, which is just west of State College in Center County.
Near State College.
Yep.
All right,
at
excellent.
Rock Springs Research Farm areas.
Excellent. Bob, thank you very much for joining us, and thanks to our callers, too. Those are some good questions today.
They were.
All right. Thanks again, Bob, for joining us. We'll talk to you again next week. Bob Pollock of the Indiana County Cooperative Extension Office joining us this morning on Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank. Our interview segment presented by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people.